Hello students, welcome back to the biology class. So in the last class we continued the 21st chapter, that is the neural control and coordination, and we discussed about in detail the structure of the first part of the brain, that is called as the forebrain. We learned histologically brain is divisible into two types of tissue, the white matter and the grey matter. We learned that the white matter is present towards the inner side, which is called as the medulla, and the grey matter is present towards the outside, which is called as the cortex. We learned that this arrangement of white and the grey matter is opposite in the case of the spinal cord, and in the case of the medulla oblongata, the last portion of the brain which joins it to the spinal cord, there is mixed arrangement in the anterior region, and there is the arrangement just like the spinal cord in the posterior portion of the medulla oblongata. We learned that the grey matter is composed of the cyton, dendrites, as well as the non-myelinated nerve fibers, and the grey matter and the white matter is made up of the myelinated nerve fibers. We learned in the last class that the forebrain, which is called as the prosencephalon, is the largest portion of the brain, and it is divisible into three main portions: the olfactory lobes, which are quite minute in the case of human because the olfactory power is not so nicely developed in the case of human, and second reason, this role of olfaction is taken over by the temporal lobe of the brain. That's why olfactory lobes are small in size in the case of human. The second part is the cerebral hemispheres, which are the largest portion of the forebrain, or you can say the largest portion of the complete brain also is the cerebral hemispheres. We learned in the last class that the olfactory lobes are called as the Diencephalon, and they are a pair of structures, and they carry a cavity in the case of non-human animals, and that cavity is called as the first ventricle, or also called as the rhinocele. We learned that the cerebral hemispheres are called as the telencephalon, and they are the largest part of the brain, and these two hemispheres are separated by a longitudinal fissure but connected with the help of corpus callosum, which has genu and splenium at the anterior end and the posterior end, and along with the splenium there are two projections called as the fornix. We learned in the last class that both hemispheres carry a convex surface on the superior side, concave surface towards the inferior side, and flat surfaces on the median side. We learned in the last class that the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, and right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. We learned that there are ventricles present even in the case of the cerebral hemispheres, which are called as the paracele, and they are termed even as the first and second ventricles because rhinocele is absent in the case of human. We learned these ventricles are always lined with the ependymal cells, which are specialized cuboidal cells with cilia, and they are supposed to be causing the continuous motion of the cerebrospinal fluid. We learned that these two cavities are connected with a common hole which is called as the foramen of Monro, and we learned that there are the surface of the exterior surface of the cerebral hemisphere is not smooth. It is folded into a number of depressions and elevations, which are called as gyri are the elevations and sulci are the depressions. We learned that this increases the surface area of the cerebral cortex. We learned that there are four lobes in the cerebral hemisphere: the frontal lobe, and the parietal lobe. Then we have the occipital lobe and temporal lobe. We learned their functions also in detail in the last class, and we learned a major thing in the last class, that there is always in the 95% of population of human, we will find that the left portion of the cerebral hemisphere develop first. That's why because we have learned the left side controls the right side, that's why maximum people will find are righty. They find their right hand is used first, and then in the rest of the 5% of population, it is either the right side of the brain more developed, or otherwise both sides are equally developed. We learned the functions of cerebrum in the last class, that it controls the sensory information perception, transmission of the motor impulse to the skeletal muscle, and it is a seat of intelligence, willpower, the memory, as well as the learning emotions. We learned that the third portion of the forebrain is the diencephalon, which is visible on the inferior side of the brain, and it carries the third narrow cavity, which is called as a diocele, and it opens into the fourth ventricle with the help of the iter. So the foramen of Monro is connected, is the structure which connects the first and second ventricle with the third ventricle, and third ventricle is linked with the fourth ventricle with the help of a passage or aqueduct, also called as the iter. We learned that diencephalon is divisible into three parts: epithalamus, thalamus, and hypothalamus. The epithalamus is the non-nervous roof portion, and then the thalamus is the lateral walls, and then the hypothalamus is the floor of the diencephalon. The hypothalamus is the neurosecretory cells which synthesize and secrete the hormones. The thalamus is the lateral walls, which is the relay station for the sensory inputs except for the relay of the smell. And then the epithalamus is the non-nervous roof which joins with the pia mater to form the anterior choroid plexus, which forms the cerebrospinal fluid. And behind the epithalamus, pineal gland is present. We learned in the last class that the hypothalamus perform major functions in the human body, like emotional reactions, sweating, fatigue, sleep, thirst, hunger, the ability of feeling saturation or satiation, body temperature, water balance, heartbeat, breathing, all these points, even the survival behavior like feeding, mating, fighting, etc., sexual growth as well as the normal body growth, everything is controlled by the hypothalamus. And we learned an important component of the forebrain, which is called as limbic system. Limbic system is the neural circulatory system that controls the emotional behavior and the motivational drive of a person. It includes important portions like hypothalamus, para-olfactory area, hippocampus, amygdala, septum, anterior nucleus of the thalamus, and the portion of the basal nuclei. So we covered this much in the last class. In today's class, we will try to finish the complete brain, and if possible, we will try even to finish the cranial nerves.